the report and that confidential direction to staff be confirmed.
Thank you. Is there someone like to move recommendation? Councillor Thompson, Councillor Humfryes. Any comments or questions on this one? Recorded vote.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Record vote for the first item of council reporting out of closed session. Councillor Gilliland is absent. Mayor Maracus?
Yes.
Councillor Thompson? Councillor Thompson votes yes. Councillor Humfryes? Councillor Humfryes votes yes. Councillor Kim is absent. Councillor Gartner also absent, and Councillor Gallo. Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk.
Oh, excuse me. Councillor Gallo votes no.
Thank
And
you.
the motion carries.
Thank you. Next item, 4.2, provision of cultural service agreement status update. Mr. Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This item, the motion is to defer to a future closed session meeting of council.
Thank you. Would someone like to move that? Councillor Thompson, Councillor Gallo, seconder. Thank you. Comments, questions on this one? Seeing none. Record a vote.
Record vote for the second item of council reporting out of closed session. Councillor Gallo, how do you vote? Councillor Gallo votes yes. Councillor Kim was absent. Councillor Thompson? Councillor Thompson votes yes. Councillor Humfryes? Councillor Humfryes votes yes. Mayor Maracus?
Yes.
Mayor Maracus votes yes, and Councillors Gilliland and Gardner are still absent. The motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Third item is a verbal update from our CEO.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, third item reporting of closed sessions, verbal update from the CEO to be received for information.
Thank you. Would someone like to move? Councillor Gallo, seconded by Councillor Thompson. Comments, questions on this one? Seeing none. Recorded vote.
Record vote for the third item of council reporting out of closed session. Councillor Humfryes, how do you vote? Councillor Humfryes votes yes. Councillor Kim is absent. Councillor Thompson? Councillor Thompson votes yes. Councillor Gallo? Councillor Gallo votes yes. Councillor Gilliland is absent. Mayor Maracus?
Yes.
Mayor Maracus. And Councillor Gardner is absent. The motion carries.
Thank you. Confirming bylaw. Someone like to move that? Councillor Humfryes, second. Councillor Gallo. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. Motion to adjourn. Councillor Humfryes, Councillor Gallo, all those in favor? Opposed? That carries. We are adjourned. Mr. Clerk, time is 7:03. I'm going to call this council meeting to order. We'd like to start by acknowledging that the land on which we live and work is the traditional and treaty territory of the Anishinaabe and many other nations whose presence here continues to this day. As a municipality, Aurora has shared responsibility for the stewardship of this land. We further acknowledge that Aurora is part of the treaty lands of the Mississaugas of the Credit, recognized through Treaty 13 as well as the Williams Treaties of 1923. A shared understanding of how the rich cultural heritage that has existed for centuries and of how our collective past brought us to where we are today will help us walk together into a better future. Council, can I get a motion to approve the agenda? Councillor Humfrey, seconded by Councillor Thompson. Any comments or questions on the agenda? I think Mr. CEO, you had one item you want to bring up?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Staff recommend pulling item 8.1.5 due to some procurement issues that have come up. This item we brought back to council at a future date. So that is the neighborhood park on Hartwell Way.
Pardon? I think we're just pulling it off of the. You don't want to refer it back to staff? So council will be referring it back to staff, that one item?
Sure, that's fine.
He just explained procurement. Councillor Thompson? Do you want us to do it now or do you want me just to pull it, Mr. Clerk? Okay, so we'll pull it at the time and we'll refer it at that time, okay? So I got it pulled and I'm, Councillor Thompson, I got you pulling it. Is there any other comments or questions on the agenda? Seeing none, call a vote. That carries. Any declarations of pecuniary interest? Seeing none. Community presentations, we do have one, 5.1, Franco DeMarco, Recreation Supervisor, Community Programs, and Karie Papillon, Adult Program Coordinator, Aurora Senior Center regarding June is Recreation and Parks Month. Karie, Franco, welcome.
Okay, good evening, Mayor Marakis and members of council. My name is Franco DeMarco and I'm the Recreation Supervisor for Community Programs with the Town of Aurora. With me this evening is Karie Papillon, our Adult Coordinator with the town. We're here tonight to speak with you about June is Recreation and Parks Month, a great initiative that we in the Community Services Department take great pride in and are proud to celebrate annually with the community. This year is particularly special to us as it marks the return of June is Rec and Parks Month, as we've taken a 2-year break from celebrating due to the COVID-19 pandemic. So established in 2005, June is Recreation and Parks Month, or JRPM, is an annual community mobilization movement that takes place in parks, schools, recreation centers, and neighborhoods all across Ontario. JRPM is an exciting way to increase community engagement and awareness around the important benefits that recreation and parks provide to individuals, families, and communities. The town celebrates JRPM every year because it's a great opportunity for us to increase awareness around the value of recreation, parks, and trails. The town of Aurora has a variety of recreation and park systems, providing countless recreational opportunities for residents and visitors of this beautiful community, including 5 splash pads for the whole family to enjoy as the weather gets nicer for the summer. JRPM allows the town to activate the community. We increase engagement throughout the month and showcase the wide variety of programs and services we offer while encouraging and promoting active and healthy lifestyles for residents. Research shows that participation in both structured and unstructured recreation, sport, and cultural activities improves physical, psychological, and emotional health. At a time where many of us are still feeling the impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic, recreation and parks are more important than ever to residents' overall health, well-being, and quality of life. Parks, trails, and recreational participation builds family unity and social capital. They strengthen volunteer and community development, enhance social interaction, and create community pride and vitality. Further, recreation programs, services, and parks reduce healthcare and social service costs. They serve to boost the economy, enhance property values, attract new business, and increase local tourism.
We're very pleased to offer 3 components to our June is Recreation and Parks Month this year. The community can participate in the first way through recreation programs provided by both the Town of Aurora Recreation Services Division as well as community organizations. Special thank you to Bill Marin of Total Tennis, who will be providing some free tennis workshops for children. Raymond Noble from the Aurora Lawn Bowling Club, who will be providing some free lawn bowling try-it sessions for the community, and See What We Can Do, who will be offering June Forest Hike through their Women and Dogs Circle. The second way is through a scavenger hunt. Our scavenger hunt will have 3 categories, including nature, active, and Aurora trivia. It's a fun way to engage with the community, challenge friends and family, get outdoors, and stay active. The third part is through social media. It's an option for those who would like to participate in this month independently and in a less structured way than the other 2 components. Residents that would like to engage with us can do so through social media. We're asking them to take photos of their activities with any of their friends or neighbors and tag us on our social media. A full listing of our schedule and town programs can be found on our website at aurora.ca/recreation parks month. Activities include, but are not limited to, outdoor fitness classes, basketball and volleyball workshops, preschool playtime, rock climbing, Father's Day leisure swim, swim assessments, tennis, older adult movie nights, bingo, name that tune, Jeopardy, and so much more. There's something for all ages and all abilities, and we hope you'll join us. We encourage anyone interested in learning more about this to visit our website and see the full schedule online. All activities are free. Pre-registration is required for some activities, which is also noted on the website. Registration opened Monday, May 16th for residents and May 24th for non-residents. Hard copies of the schedule are at the Aurora Senior Center and can be requested from staff. Our scavenger hunt is through the Goose Chase app. To download the app, you simply go to your Play Store, whether it is the App Store through your Mac device or on Google Play. Step-by-step instructions with visual graphics for everyone are available. I've tested them personally with several seniors, and they are senior approved to be simple and easy to follow. From there, participants can complete missions, collect points along the way, and new missions will be released every Monday and Friday. They can be completed, however, on your schedule whenever you choose. Join the fun, see where you land in the ranking. And as mentioned previously, we want to see how the community is also celebrating. Post your photos on the Facebook, Twitter, Instagram using the hashtag Aurora JRPM22 and have it, or it will become eligible to be potentially published in the Aurora Community Services Program Guide. Please don't forget to tag the town of Aurora in these posts. And if you need more ideas on how to be active for that perfect photo moment, we invite you to also take a look on our website for the Parks Recreation Ontario activity booklet with lots of activities you can do with your family, friends, and neighbors, which are fun resources to get involved this month.
Each of our JRPM programs and activities are safe and follow all COVID-19 public health guidelines. Participants are asked to follow all public health advice and recommendations prior to attending any town program or event to ensure a safe environment for all participants and staff. On behalf of the Community Services Department, we invite Mayor Maracas and all of council to come out and participate in all the fun activities that we have planned throughout the month of June. We'd also like to thank Mayor Maracas for declaring June as Recreation and Parks Month in the town of Aurora. The formal proclamation can be found on the town's website. Thank you to Mayor and Council for your time this evening. We hope to see the community out in June celebrating recreation and parks with us.
Thank you, Franco and Karie. Appreciate it. Council, first, can I get a motion to receive the presentation? Councillor Thompson, Councillor Kim, any comments or questions for Karie or Franco? Councillor Humfryes?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to thank you both so much for coming this evening and keeping our town active and, using our opportunities to showcase our parks and all the things that we can do in our town. I know many of our residents are probably pretty aware, but having June is the month of Recreation and Parks Month is kind of exciting and fun, and hopefully we'll have great weather, not like we saw on Saturday, but all great moving forward. So thank you so much for your efforts and looking forward to participating. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, just before I call the vote, thank you very much for coming. Thanks for keeping everyone active. I'm just looking around the room, and I think that maybe we should declare or proclaim the end of May attending council month, because it's the first time we've seen people in this chamber, I think in almost 2 years, this many people. So thank you for coming. Thank you, Franco and Karie. I know you guys have done a tremendous job. I think the whole department has in creating events, not only through the pandemic, but especially coming out of it and providing those opportunities for our residents in our community, and especially the youth and the seniors. So thank you very much. Council, call the vote. Councillor Gardner?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My vote is yes.
Thank you. And that carries. So next, council will move to delegations. We have 2 delegations. First up, we have 6.1, Jennifer Kagan regarding Councillor Humfryes' motion, Private Members Bill C-233, Keira's Law, sorry. Apologies. Was it? Jennifer, can you hear me? I can't hear you yet.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, very good.
Okay,
Good
so
evening.
Jennifer, I'll let you know you have 5 minutes and the floor is yours.
Hello, Mayor Maracas and Aurora Town Council. Thank you to Councillor Humfryes for bringing this motion in support of Keira's Law, Bill C-233, and inviting me here to speak with you today. I have an extra heavy heart tonight thinking about what's happened in Texas with the shooting, the lives lost, and my hearts are with those families tonight. My name is Jennifer Kagan, a physician and an advocate for victims and survivors of domestic violence and children. I'm going to share my story. It is difficult to hear about this bill and why it is important. I'm going to start with my story. Essentially, my daughter Keira was only 4 years old when her life was violently taken from her. She was found dead at the base of a cliff in Rattlesnake Point, along with her biological father in February of 2020 in a murder-suicide. We had been in child custody litigation since I had left her father in a situation of domestic violence and coercive control. When Keira was 8 months old, I left that situation. This murder-suicide occurred just prior to a return to court, where my ex-husband's access to Keira was about to be suspended or supervised. I want to tell you about Keira's Law, or Bill C-233. This bill is a federal bill tabled by MP Andrew Dillon, along with the support of MP Pam Demoff and MP Yara Sachs. It's received support from all parties. It's doing very well in the House of Commons. We'll be going for third reading soon. Bill C-233 will educate judges on domestic violence and coercive control. Currently, judges receive little to no such education, nor is it even regularly available to them. Domestic violence is a huge issue. 1 in 4 women experience domestic violence in their lifetime. Children aren't merely exposed to domestic violence, they experience it. Experiencing domestic violence as a child is associated with a whole host of lifelong mental and physical health consequences. And in worst case scenarios, children are abducted from their safe parent or even murdered. In Canada, between 30 to 40 children a year are killed by a violent parent. And in the US, according to the Center for Judicial Excellence, since 2008, 833 kids have been killed by a divorcing or separating parent. Many of these cases involve failures of various systems to protect them, such as the courts and children's aid societies. We must do better to reform the systems that are putting children into unsafe hands. Education on domestic violence for all players in the system is a major step toward that. Judges serve a critically important role as gatekeeper in the system. However, people are shocked to learn that many judges deciding parenting cases have no background and little knowledge of family law at all. Judges with histories as labor lawyers or even personal injury lawyers regularly hear and decide the outcomes of family law cases. Even when one is before a judge with a background in family law, it does not mean that he or she has dealt with or had training in domestic violence. For example, my trial was before a judge with a background in employment law. Oftentimes, judges make decisions based on faulty assumptions of what domestic violence looks like in the year 2022, especially non-physical violence and coercive control. They use outdated stereotypes of how victims act. They regularly ignore, dismiss, or minimize domestic violence allegations. In many cases, they even penalize the victim for having the courage to speak up. This is all based on a lack of understanding. In March of 2021, changes were made to the Federal Divorce Act to recognize the importance of domestic violence and coercive control. Judges must take domestic violence into account in parenting decisions. However, very little has changed. The disconnect is that judges are not being educated to recognize domestic violence and coercive control, and Keira's Law, Bill C-233, is a step towards providing them with that education to reduce, killing of children by the parent, filicide, femicide, and harm from domestic violence. The education contained in Keira's Law will give these judges the tools to identify red flags and warning signs and put child safety at the forefront. It is too late for Keira, but there are thousands of children at risk in Canada. I want to thank you again to Councillor Humfryes for bringing forward this motion in support of Keira's Law, Bill C-233, Thank you to Mayor Marakis and the entire Aurora Town Council, and thank you for inviting me to speak with you today about this very important issue. I hope that you will vote yes to pass this resolution and to help make Keira's Law a reality in Canada. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. Council, first, before I ask if there's any comments or questions, if I can get a motion to receive and refer to the motion 10.1, Councillor Thompson, second, Councillor Humfryes. Any comments or questions? Councillor Humfryes?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Jennifer, for delegating this evening. I just have just a few words. There aren't many words that you can say at this point, but just thank you for your courage and your strength to move forward and help other children and families in the situation that you had to endure. And by that, I believe we can all make a huge difference in the future to protect families, children from this type of domestic violence. So I just wanted to thank you very much for being here this evening and delegating, and thank you for your strength and courage.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Gilliland.
Thank you, through Mr. Mayor, to the delegate. Thank you very much for coming and speaking today. I was very excited when I saw this motion on our agenda. I think it is very important. So thank you, Councillor Humfryes, for including this today. And again, like your courage and bravery for sharing that story. And it's really important for everybody to hear the reality of, those dangers and, what we can do to help protect the situation so this doesn't happen again. So again, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Councillor Kim.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Ms. Kagan, for presenting your testimony. It's often through testimony and rehashing, very harsh history that reminds us that we need to march forward in various causes. And this is certainly a very worthwhile motion. And thank you for having the courage to put this through the various MPs to Ottawa, because this certainly needs to be, especially the judges need to be educated in this regard. Often, whether it be illustration of doctors, like to solve a problem by just medicating and prescribing medication. A strong believer in holistic medicine as well. There's a lot of other variables that go into solving a problem than just punishment and other aspects. But so thank you for coming forward, and thank you for your testimony, because it reminds us that this issue is yet to be dealt with and probably won't be, but it needs to be refreshed in our minds. So thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, Jennifer, thank you very much for coming and sharing your personal story. I know you'll hear probably a few more comments when we do deal with the motion, but I do thank Councillor Humfryes as well for bringing this forward. I know she had a discussion with you, and she mentioned to me that she wanted to bring this forward, and I just think this is a very important issue that we need to ensure that our federal government understands that that this needs to be done. So thank you very much for coming and sharing, as I said, your personal story with us today.
Thank you so very much.
Council, I'll call a vote. Councillor Gardner.
Thank you. My vote is yes.
Thank you. That carries. Next delegation, we have 6.2, David Spencer, resident, regarding item 8.2.5, off-leash dog park and trail pilot program. Mr. Spencer, welcome. You have 5 minutes and the floor is yours, sir.
Evening, Mayor, members of council, and thank you for the opportunity to address your council. As advised, my wife and I were one of the original owners on the street at Richwood Court, and we've lived there for 31 years. I think that most of the people on our street feel we have a bit of a hidden gem tucked away with our quiet street and open space, and we are blessed to have wonderful neighbors who are supportive and considerate. Many of the neighbors here have been involved in the annual cleanups and organizing those cleanups, and some of the original residents were also involved in the tree planting during the original Arbor Days. I'm not going to go through the letter itself, but I'm going to focus on a few key issues. First of all, my wife and I found out about this agenda item by accident when our neighbor was referred to a Welland paper referring to this matter. And when we investigated on the town website and looked at the report, frankly, we were gobsmacked. I'm a real estate development lawyer, and I've been involved in the municipal planning process for over 37 years. And I do not think that I have seen a matter that is this important to the use and enjoyment of homes by homeowners brought before council for consideration without any notice or consultation whatsoever of the owners affected. And frankly, we don't think there's any excuse for this. We should have at the very least been afforded the level of notice that the owners on the Hartwell Way application were given, and we were not. The manner in which this matter was handled is not acceptable to us. Council and staff have a fiduciary obligation to provide consultation and notice where they intend any actions that could profoundly impact the use, enjoyment, and value of a person's home. We are seeking a resolution of council to commit to providing our neighborhood with 6 months' notice if this matter is ever revisited. I appreciate that council cannot fetter the discretion of future council, but on the matter of procedural fairness, I think future council would take guidance. The report itself, I think, fundamentally overlooks and perhaps skims over one critical fact. The Ragewood open space is already being used for recreational purposes by the neighborhood. How do residents and their children compete with pets for the use of the area? The report is premised on taking an unused or underutilized town asset and repurposing it, leaving aside whether the proposed use is appropriate, and we do not feel that it is. What you are doing is taking away a community asset that is heavily and historically used by residents in the neighborhood, especially during COVID. People rediscovered this wonderful space, and we had soccer games, parents playing baseball and catch with their kids, and volleyball games. There were picnics and kids playing hide and seek and tobogganing in the winter. These were things that my kids did in this space growing up, and my grandchildren are doing today. This is not taking unused public land and giving it a purpose. This is depriving and displacing a community use of an existing asset. As to the merits of the report, I believe it is fundamentally flawed, and it is unsupported by any land use commentary, traffic, or parking reports that would normally accompany an application of this impact. The recommendation is that open space be converted to use that is an off-leash destination dog park, which will become at the very least a destination for pet owners in the whole southwest quadrant of Aurora and parts of Oak Ridges. Just review the social media comments on Canine comments in this regard. Our experience, especially during COVID, is that most people would attend the street by car, and there are serious traffic and safety concerns here. Ragewood owners have good grounds to worry that our street would be overwhelmed with traffic. We love our street because it is a cul-de-sac with lots of young children that play in the court in the open space. What is being proposed puts these children at risk and deprives them of a play space. More recent residents of the street have paid a premium to be on this quiet street with its trees and open space in order to raise their families. If this proposal was to proceed, the lands themselves would be severely degraded. Canine Commons is proof of that. There would be noise and odor, and given the lack of fencing proposed, pets would be off leash and probably running over the neighborhood. I'm quite confident that no councillor would want this backing onto his or her backyard. Even the Hartwell Way proposal that was turned down had buffer areas planned between the park and homes. The retention area was not designed for use of a dog park, and the proposal does not take into consideration the primary two tenets of pet welfare legislation: care and control of the animals. The free-for-all format is operationally flawed and does not follow good pet management practices. I'd like to finish with the words of your manager in Parks and Fleet when the proposal for Hartway Well was withdrawn. Residents are concerned about the potential for noise from barking, security of dogs, odors, and inappropriateness of off-leash park in a residential area. As such, staff have removed the amenity from the design plans, and the area will be programmed as an open space turf area for residents to utilize for their recreation. It is recommended that staff continue to pursue off-leash park opportunities, but not as part of the park design where lands are located within a residential neighborhood with bordering homes. Exactly. So please follow your own policy here. We are requesting that council specifically not approve the report with respect to the Darkwood detention area. We do not want this matter deferred, reprogrammed, rethought of. We want council to instruct staff that this is not an appropriate location. If you think I'm upset, I am. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Spencer. Mr. Spencer, everyone, I mean, I know everyone's again. Mr. Spencer, could I get you to come back? Because just in case I got a bunch of counselors that have their hands up, so they might want to ask you a question. So
I'm sorry, and I did forget to, almost all of my neighbors and owners in the street are here in attendance this evening.
no, we appreciate
And
it.
some from Lordview as well.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I'll start with Councillor Humfryes.
I thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you so much for your delegation. So first of all, a lot of us feel the same way as you. And in the report this evening, there is one section 825B that staff be directed to develop an off-leash strategy, including park and trail location options, costs, and report back to council. So this isn't going, it has not been approved. It's there, but it's not, so much more has to be done. There has to be communication to the residents. Is this the right place? Do you want it there? Then we get the feedback and then we make the final decision. So I think it came to us as an idea, as a location, but we did not approve it. So this evening is asking staff to go back and come up with a place that's appropriate. Obviously, we can tell it's not from the residents' perspective. We had all kinds of concerns. You mentioned all of them. Where are they going to park? You know, how's this going to, happen? And we did ask if you were contacted, and that wasn't done as of yet. So that's a big step before we go into any decisions to put a park in any place within our residents' areas. I mean, it wouldn't be responsible of us to do that. So apologies to everyone for the concern and sort of the very disappointment. Now you're all here, which is great, and we need to hear this as well. But we all felt that there was lots more work to be done, and that's why we've asked staff to go back. And they've heard you tonight. We've heard you tonight. We're going to find somewhere we can accommodate this where it's appropriate. And as to your point, where it should be in terms of our policy. So I just wanted to share that with you this evening. Lots of work still to be done. And so it's not moving forward in your direction until it comes back here with where, with all the details, including an off-leash strategy, which is a very big part of the sort of, we did the cart before the horse type of thing. So from your perspective, I hope that makes you feel a little more comfortable. And moving forward, when we get to this item later on, we'll probably speak about communication before it even comes to us, that there's some discussion with residents in terms of feedback before it comes here. So I think it's one of our missings, I believe, in this whole report. So I wanted to share that with you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Humfryes. Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Spencer, for coming out tonight. I certainly agree wholeheartedly with your comments and appreciate the support of all your neighbors as well. I spoke last week with regards to the report and raised the issue about the lack of notice and engagement with all the residents in the area. I certainly think that is a key component in anything we do when it comes to parks, especially the dog park, as we've seen over the last number of years. I raised the concern about parking and the impact to your quiet little neighborhood. Absolutely. And so I didn't support it last time. I won't support it again this evening. And I'm fine with giving ample notice, but I would not want to see us revisit the issue in your area, period.
Councillor Kim.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I'm in agreement with all that was said as well. We were quite surprised when we read the report last week. Members of council received our agendas approximately a week in advance. So we did not know what was going to be on the agenda until when it was time for us to read it. So it was not certainly planned by members of council or were aware. And certainly there is a process to be followed. And I don't know exactly in terms of in this type of situation what the timelines should be, but definitely going forward, there should be a timeline when there's any kind of idea or development to be had, large or small, in any area of Aurora. The community should be notified, the residents should be notified, because we always talk about partnership with residents, partnerships with developers, and that was not illustrated in this agenda item. So certainly, all the concerns that were raised, we all had them. And so last week in General Committee, I believe it was unanimous against the dog park in your neighborhood. So I don't see that changing tonight, but I thank you for your unity in coming out this evening.
Thank you. Councillor Gilliland.
Thank you very much. I won't repeat too much what's said around the council. I definitely agree with what was occurred between the communication. Obviously, we do need dog parks. There's no question about that. We do have a lack in Aurora. And this is why we referred back to staff, because we need to look at options that encompass all Aurora so we can find out what the best locations are. And again, as Councillor Humfrey said, and Councillor Kim, there is a step process. And, first we identify those locations, do that strategy and then communicate with the neighborhoods and make sure that it's somewhere that's appropriate. And that's why we referred it back. I believe we shouldn't be just identifying just one option. There should be multiple options, and hopefully we'll get to the right answer at some point. But we know that this location clearly poses a lot of issues, and I feel confident that that's not something that we're going to agree with moving forward with that location. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Gallo.
Thank you. And I think it merits saying that staff to a certain degree tried their best to accomplish what council had originally requested. And maybe there was some communication issues. Maybe we didn't communicate exactly what we wanted, but you can rest assured if you watched the video last week, pretty much everything you said was said around this table, and it wasn't lost on us that a solid communication plan has to happen wherever this ends up going. And just to thank Councillor Gilliland for bringing it forward and the amendment to send it back to staff to do it right. There are many things that need to be done before we get it right. And you can rest assured that if anything happens in your neighborhood from now on, I think it was clear along this side of the table that you'll be aware of it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Spencer, to everyone in the neighborhood, I think that it's quite obvious. I think all of us agree. I mean, Mr. Spencer, you and I had a conversation, fully agree with all your comments, 100%. I don't think a dog park is ideal in a kind of tucked away area within a smaller part of one of our neighborhoods. And I think it's inappropriate to have it in that area, especially as we've all said, without adequate parking, without consultation, all that stuff. But moving forward, we're not going to be able to get anything done unless there's consultation, unless there's collaboration and cooperation. And that's what we need to continue to do with all the residents in our community. And I can guarantee you that's what we'll be doing as we move forward. And as Councillor Thompson mentioned, I am not, by all means, looking at revisiting this issue in this area ever again. So
Thank you very much.
So with that, I will call a vote. Actually, I need a motion to receive and refer this to, 8.2.5. Councillor Humphreys, Councillor Gilliland. Call the vote.
One second, George. I have to vote. 1 second.
Councillor Garner?
I vote yes.
Thank you. And that carries. And for everyone, we will get to this item. I think we're going to be pulling one because we have a presentation ahead from one of our deputy fire chiefs. And then after that, I'll ask that council bring this one forward so we can get to it at an earlier time. So that way you guys can finish up and see what we do. Thank you. Council, move to the consent agenda. Can I get someone to move a motion to approve items 7.1 to 7.6? Councillor Thompson, Councillor Kim. Are there any comments or questions on the consent agenda? Call the vote. Councillor Gardner?
I vote yes.
Thank you.
Okay, George, I'm gonna do
That
my.
carries.
I'm gonna do my.
Councillor Gardner, thank you. Council next, standing committee reports. This is for both 8.1s and 8.2. Are there any items that anyone wants pulled? I already have 8.1.5 from Councillor Thompson, who's going to do the referral that our CAO mentioned. Are there any other items? Councillor Thompson, did you have your hand up for something else?
9.1, but I'll do it in time.
I'll do, okay. Councillor Gallo?
0.1.8, I just want to divide that up.
Okay.
I want to vote separately.
Oh, I got that for you. Is there anything else? That's it. Councillor Kim, anything? Councillor Humfryes? Councillor Gillett? 8.1.8. Train whistle. No? Councillor Gardner?
8.1.7 pulled.
Nope.
Thank you. And
Okay.
8.1.8 is pulled.
Pardon?
And we have pulled 8.1.8.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Council, can I ask someone pull 8.2.5, considering we had a delegation? Oh, B. Okay, well, I don't have it separate here, but okay. You're saying it's separate? Yes. Okay. So 8.2. Okay, wait, Councillor Kim,
I'd like to pull the
A as well?
Okay,
So why don't we just pull both then? So we'll pull it as one, 8.2.5, A and B.
Yeah.
Councillor Kim. Okay. Thank you. A and B. Okay, can I get a motion to, oh, Councillor Thompson, sorry, not yet,
Okay.
not yet. I know what you want. You want to move that one forward, but not yet. We're almost there. Can I get a motion to approve all the remaining items? Minus 8.1.5, 8.1.7, 8.1.8, and 8.2.5 A plus B. Councillor Thompson, seconder. Councillor Gilliland. Call the vote. That carries. Councillor Thompson now.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Deputy Chief Inglis is joining us this evening. He has a presentation with regards to mandatory certification for firefighters. It is item 9.1 on our agenda. I would ask that with council's indulgence that we move that item forward so that Deputy Chief can present now.
Appreciate that. If everyone's okay, Mr. Clerk, we won't need a motion. Is everyone okay with that? Everyone's okay. Council, I would also suggest that we just continue backwards. So we'll do 9.1 and then 8.2.5 A and B because all the residents, most of the majority of residents are here for that. And then we'll move to 8.1.8, which is the train whistle, because I know we have a resident here as well for that.
Sure.
Is that everyone good with that? So we'll just go backwards through the list, okay? Okay. So we'll start with 9.1, mandatory firefighter certification. We have a presentation to be provided by Deputy Chief Jeremy Inglis, Support Services, Central York Fire Services. Deputy Chief, welcome. Majority of residents are here for that. And then we'll move to 8.1.8, which is train whistle. I know we have a resident here as well for that. Oh, Deputy Chief, I need you to turn off your stream. Off of YouTube, because we're getting the feedback. Sorry about that. No, it's okay. That's better. There you go. So I'll let you take it away.
Excellent. Thank you. So tonight I'm just, I've been asked by Councillor Thompson to provide an update that we provided on a report to JCC in March regarding the mandatory certification regulation that's come into effect in April through the province of Ontario. So the purpose of this regulation was really that there was a loose framework of training and certification throughout the province, really no set standard. While the province worked off the NFPA standards, there was no requirement to move forward with that. And as such, there were gaps. And what this came from was from 5 firefighter fatalities that resulted in coroner's inquests. So it's really driven through the fire marshal, the fire college really took a listen to the consultations the OFC put out. We met with over 500 fire chiefs and deputies across the province and really made a number of suggestions to go forward. So as I mentioned, this came into as a regulation into effect in April. It will go into full effect on July 1st, 2022. From there, we'll have until July 1st, 2026 to certify to Firefighter 1 and 2, hazardous materials awareness, Officer 1, Instructor 1, our inspector, investigator, and the base, really those base core competencies. The good thing is that Central York was very forward-looking as we were moving forward with training, and it worked towards a number of these certifications already. When we hire our new recruits, they come with Firefighter 1 and 2, as well as the hazmat awareness and operations. The next piece is through our officer development, where the Instructor 1 and Officer 1 are covered. So we're in good shape when it comes to that. The main changes that really added to our certification requirements were the mandatory requirements on 1002, which is our pump ops, and 1006, which is the technical rescue, which we offer rope rescue, surface water, and ice rescue within the town. We also have our 1031, which is inspector, and then our 1033, which is our investigator, which will be caught up on by the end of this year. Our major kind of endeavor that we're going to have to move forward with is the mission specific, which is under the hazmat portfolio, or 1072. We have about 80 firefighters that we need to bring up to certification on that. So that's going to be our big piece, and training staff right now are piecing together what our current training records to indicate what we need to make up, and then start the certification process. From the changes that were presented in March, and really through that consultation that the fire marshal took through the OAFC, there's been a number of reduced requirements to this certification or regulation. The biggest for us in Central York being the vehicle extrication and the heavy vehicle extrication being dropped from the mandatory certification. This helped reduce the monetary piece of this certification process significantly as we move forward. And as I said to the JCC, this is a good direction forward for the fire service. It's going to create that baseline standard that we're moving in the right direction and helping to bring everybody up to that same level of training and really balance it out across the province. While we're working on this, I think it's very doable. And I'm sure I'll get asked the question on the basics of what it's going to cost. And I'll present worst case scenario on that. But we're in a good position, and we'll be able to move forward with relative ease through this process.
Thank you, Deputy Chief. Council, first, I'll ask for a motion to receive this for information and refer it actually to Councillor Thompson's motion 10.3. Councillor Thompson, second. Well, we're receiving it for information, and I'm asking to refer it to your motion. Councillor Thompson, seconded by Councillor Gilliland. Councillor Thompson.
Thank you. Through you to Deputy Chief Inglis. Deputy Chief, thank you for being here tonight and giving a little bit of the flavor of the conversation that we had at JCC with regards to this item. Just a couple things. I think at JCC, when we talked about it, there was concern expressed over the lack of consultation and the timing to put forward in these regulations, as well as the cost, and you spoke briefly of it. But yes, we did say, in principle, we all support this step, but it's just the implementation and how it's going about it. Is that fair to say?
Deputy Chief?
Yes, thank you, Councillor, and through you, Mr. Mayor. While we looked at, I think the gap really was with the AMO where they weren't consulted. I believe it was only a few weeks before the closing of the consultation date. And I know that the fire marshal, as well as some of the executive from the OFC, met with AMO staff and really started to raise the discussion on this. But you brought up a great point with the funding. There really hasn't been many announcements or any announcements on how this is going to be funded going forward, whether there'll be opportunities for grants, or whether the sole budget burden will be shouldered by the departments.
Councillor?
Thank you. And while you did say that there's been some changes with regards to extrication and so forth that do reduce the monetary impact, and we are still trying to, I guess, evaluate what the true cost will be, are you able to provide any sort of guesstimate in terms of what the impact will be to Central York Fire Service, which of course is shared by Newmarket and Aurora?
Deputy
Yes,
Chief?
Thank you, Councillor, and through you, Mr. Mayor. We really have been able to put together kind of a worst case scenario. So this would be if there's no option for online learning for the courses we have to certify in. We're unable to deliver the training on shift, so we're having to remove off shift and then backfill with overtime. So as I mentioned, this would be a worst case scenario, approximately $800,000 over the 6 years. Now, with more and more coming to light every day from the fire marshal and the fire college, with what the options are going to be for learning contracts and being able to deliver in-house, we're pretty confident that it's going to be substantially less than that over the 6 years that we'll be doing the certification.
Councillor?
Thank you. And again, through you, Mr. Mayor and Mr. Deputy Chief Inglis, would it also be fair to say that the impact will be felt by all fire stations, not just Aurora and Newmarkets, but across the board?
Deputy Chief?
Yeah, yes, and thank you, Councillor. Through you, Mr. Mayor, it's really going to depend on the department. Those who've been forward thinking and moving towards this since the initial inception of certification that was really brought to light about 8 years ago, they're in good shape, but there are a number of departments this is going to impact significantly, especially when you start to look at smaller departments who maybe haven't been working towards the certification just because of lack of resources and expertise. It's going to be a steep road for them, but the fire marshal has committed to providing more resources to this and helping those through that. And I know the OAFC executive, a number of us have reached out to departments and had conversations with them on ways that they can help set up their program to be as efficient as possible.
Councillor?
Thank you. I'll say the remainder of my comments for when we discuss the motion itself. Appreciate your evening, Chief.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions at this time? Deputy Chief, thank you very much for coming this evening.
No, thank you for having me.
You're welcome. I'll call the vote. That carries. So council, next we'll do 8.2.5. Mr. Clerk, you want us to do these separately? So we'll start with A. I just have to make sure which one I have here on my agenda. So A is that report number OPS 22-010 be received, and 2, that the dogs not be permitted within the environmentally sensitive lands of the David Tomlinson Nature Reserve and associated trails. Councillor Kim, you pulled this one. Did you want to move this one? Yes. Move that. Thank you. Someone like to second it? Councillor Gilliland. Councillor Kim?
This item was tabled in general committee. I misinterpreted the recommendations that dogs not be permitted at the David Tomlinson Nature Reserve. I thought it was only staff was recommending unleash dogs not be permitted, but all dogs not be permitted, even on a leash. That's not something that I would be in favor of at this moment. So I'd like to reconsider that here in council, and I would not be in favor of item 3 of the original GC.
Councillor, you can just vote against.
Yeah, and I'll be voting against.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions on this one? Councillor Gardner?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I believe the reason that dogs shouldn't be allowed here is that they would, well, we know dogs bark. We know dogs bark at each other. Assume they bark at wildlife. And the whole intent of this is to protect the wildlife. We even have blinds so that the wildlife won't see people. So dogs are just not appropriate in this kind of a wildlife park. You know, it's going to be a great park. I wish they could be, but it goes against the intent of a wildlife park.
Thank you. Councillor Humphries?
Mr. Mayor, at this point, is it appropriate to remove the site that the residents have come here tonight? We're saying no dogs allowed on item 2. Do we want to add that park not be considered here as well?
That's
B.
part B. We're going to deal with that after, right
Okay.
after this.
Thank
We're
you.
just trying to get through this one.
Yep.
And I'll just remind council, unless we're bringing something new, I know Councillor Kim's brought the fact that he's voting in a different direction. Procedural bylaws, not to rehash the exact same debate. Councillor Gallo.
Thank you. And I just, I'm not sure if Councillor Kim had the time to reach out to Mr. Tomlinson or not, but it was an integral part of the design of the nature reserve not to have dogs part of that. And I think if we move forward with having dogs even on leash, you've really destroyed the entire plan of that wildlife reserve. So I mean, I'm definitely in favor of what's before us. And I would urge everyone else to also be in favor of it if we want to maintain the plan that David worked, I don't know, 15 years or so to finally come to fruition.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Councillor Thompson, first time.
Thank you. Through you to Mr. Downey. Mr. Downey, you know, you've indicated last week when we had this conversation that, you know, unfortunately at this point, people are taking their dogs through the park and this would be a change of use or notice to them. How are we going to communicate with residents this change in policy? And, you know, is there a way we can do so that they understand the intent behind it with regards to the wildlife, the impact, so that they understand the rationale behind the decision making?
Mr. Downey?
So through you, Mr. Mayor, as I stated last week, there needs to be an extensive communication program. So there will be signage put up in the park. So there'll be some explanations as to what the concern is with regards to animals in the park. We want to make sure that people clearly understand the negative impacts of dogs, whether they're on a leash or not, what the impacts would be on the wildlife park. But it's going to take a while before people clearly understand, and we will be working with our bylaw enforcement to make sure there's an educational program with regards to enforcement of this. We will do our best with our staff when they're out there to inform people of the concerns of dogs within the park. But it's something that is going to take a period of time before people clearly understand, but we need to start.
Councillor?
Thank you. I would just, emphasize that, yes, communication is going to be the key. The question is going to be why now? And, whether you bring something back to council to have further discussion this or not, I just think that there needs to be a very comprehensive communication plan for this, understanding the rationale of this change. Otherwise, they'll just end up back at this table and we'll have further conversations.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions for the first time? Otherwise, I'll go to Councillor Kim for a second. Councillor Kim.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And that's the point that I wanted to make in my second round of speaking, is that after residents in those neighborhoods surrounding the Wilderness Park caught wind of this item, they were certainly shocked, because especially after COVID, I think about 60% of residents have dogs. So certainly we need to communicate this to them. And second, I go, throughout this COVID, I think our family's gone hiking in the woods probably 4 or 5 times more than we normally would. And here in Aurora, in Shepherd's Bush, in Whitchurch, Stouffville, and Newmarket, and elsewhere. And just, they're not called wilderness parks, but they are hiking trails with tens of acres, if not hundreds of acres of wildlife in it. And they all allow dogs. So I'm open to, we're deferring this back to staff for either further investigation and or proper communication with the residents. And that's pretty well, at least a quarter of the population of Aurora, because either side of Mavronack utilizes that trail heavily. So that would be my recommendation.
Refer it back to staff?
Yes.
Refer it back to staff?
Yes.
Someone like to second that? Councillor Yellen, thank you. Speaking to the referral? Councillor Yellen?
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Kim, for your insight. Myself included, I thought that dogs were already permitted, not permitted. So I thought that they were not allowed as simply a sign change, but I agree that perhaps maybe the habits of certain individuals who are walking in the neighborhood, live in the neighborhood, who are all on control on leash might become as a bit of a shock. And it does connect, I believe, up to other trails that would be considered more main walking trails. Again, I didn't reach out to David Tomlinson to ask his advice or opinion on this or what he would prefer. There's a lot of responsible dog owners out there to where they're walking on leash and it's totally under control. So yeah, maybe there is a little bit more thought that needs to be involved with, the communication, how it's going to be communicated, if there's specific sections of it. I know it does shoulder a park, so a lot of people are playing at the park. They may take their dog for a walk in there. I know on the Canada Day celebrations, which is often down below, tons of families would be there and they'll be there with their dog and take a little walk around on leash. So, and I've been down there on leash before. So, I agree. Maybe there's a little bit more consideration there than meets the eye. So I would support the refer.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Gartner, to the referral.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I've often wondered whether the choice of name as a park is appropriate, because really it's more a wildlife reserve and was always intended to be for nature and not for domestic animals to use. So it is a reserve. And we are there we've been working on this for a long time so that we can protect the animals that are there, the wildlife. And so, you don't put a blind in for people to be hidden and then allow dogs to be in that park. It's completely contrary to the intent. And the intent has not changed. So perhaps it's miscommunication, but this is definitely, refer back to staff, but if we look at all the reports that have led up to this time, it's been very clear that this is a wildlife reserve and is not for walking our dogs.
Thank you. Councillor Thompson, to the referral.
Thank you. I'm making the assumption that the intent of the referral is to gather more information, perhaps to have staff come back with a communication plan in terms of how it's going to be presented to those in the area, to engage the residents in the area for their feedback as well, so that can be shared with members of council, but also to go back to the wildlife plan, take some of that information and bring it forward again and present it to council as a reminder of the intent behind it all. And so through you to Mr. Downey, Mr. Downey, if this referral does get approved, are you able to come back to us in a relatively short order with a report providing some more information and some framework around communication, as you spoke to it, the basic intent of the wildlife park and why this is important, as well as perhaps providing some sort of engagement with the residents in the area and feedback?
Mr. Downey?
It's through you, Mr. Mayor. Absolutely. We're happy to do that. I want to confirm with council that this was actually a council approved direction in 2015. So staff are acting upon council direction. So we are happy to communicate what the study says, why it says it, some of the steps that need to be taken in order to communicate that to the public. But now that the park was recently completed, we want to make sure that we begin putting up the proper signage and proper controls within the park.
Councillor?
No, I appreciate that. I think that if that report can come back to us in short order, it will just give all members of council a greater comfort level around the rationale and the decision-making process. And so I'll support the referral under that understanding.
Thank you. Councillor Gallo to the referral.
A little bit shocked at what I'm hearing. It's clear to me. I really don't know how to start because so much work was put into this, and if we're referring it back for communication on our communications plan, we don't need to refer back. If the motion moves as is, staff will develop a communication plan and implement it. There's no need to refer if that's the only thing you're looking for. In case we don't know or we haven't read the feasibility study, I'll read part of it, or at least in the report. The nature reserve designed by David Thompson was modeled after similar parks in Europe, which is not intended for dog use. These reserves are wildlife and safe havens intended to create optimum habitat that allow for wildlife regeneration in urban centers, increase diversification and opportunities to promote breeding. The Wildlife Park Master Plan Feasibility Study, Section 12.1, speaks to dog impact in the park and how damage to vegetation intrusion in streams, wetlands, and the damage to wildlife habitat and wildlife itself, irrespective of owners' good intentions on or off leash. Council's supported this. I'm shocked to hear. I guess some residents must have touch the ear of certain people, and it's an election year, of course, and we're trying to figure out wards and all of that. There must be some link to that, because at a council table to bring this up now, what happened last week, or at GC when this was there, you could have resolved your issues between then and now. It just doesn't seem right, and I'm sorry if David is listening to this. We fought hard, really hard, to get that with the development community, years and years and years. And David himself fought to get that park the way it is, and hundreds of volunteers. You have no idea the massive effort that was put forward to develop that park. And now we want to change it. I just don't get it. I don't get it. I'm shaking my head, and I'm so frustrated at this that it's even moving forward.
Councillor Allen, before I go to you the second time, I just want to make a couple of comments. I'll be in support of the referral. I mean, we just finished having a conversation and listening to residents here in the audience saying about consulting with our residents in the community. This is going to be a significant change to the area of how they're going to be going out with their dogs. I fully understand and appreciate what it says in the plan. We all know what it says in the plan. We've all read the plan. We all agreed with the plan. But the problem is this park's been open for almost a year now. And they've been allowed, the residents have been allowed to take their dogs through their on leash. To turn around now without consultation, which we all agreed was important. We just finished telling the residents sitting here that that is important. And now we're going to turn around and say, on this one, we don't want to go out and consult with the residents in that area and let them know what is happening, what this council body is doing to making a significant change in the area. I would like to see a referral. I would like to see us go out to the residents, let them know what is that change, what is within our plan, why we're making that change, so they have a full understanding. And so we can hear from our residents. And then let's make our decision moving forward to put those signs up. It's a shame those signs weren't up day one. We wouldn't be in this predicament. But here we are, and we need to consult with our residents. Councillor Gilliland, second time.
Thank you. I'm just trying to wrap my head around exactly the trails that were in question, because I know there's a lot of different, like the Arboretum, the nature reserve and such. And I think that that's a lot of the confusion. I think quite personally, this shouldn't have been on the agenda. I mean, the motion was to bring back one dog park and one trail. And so having this come here just, I think, speaks to the fact that we need a little bit more information and consultation. So, I feel like this whole, report was a whole point of order within itself. So yeah, I'm in support of this refer back to staff, because I do want a little bit more information. I want to know exactly what trails we're talking about, that they can't have the dog on and on leash, off leash, understand whether or not this was a rule before or after. So there was a little bit of confusion there. And I think we owe it to the residents and council to understand exactly what those changes are. And if there's anything that's new, we're adding to those changes. And I don't think it hurts for us all to have a fulsome understanding of what that looks like. So I'm just reverting back to the fact that this shouldn't have been on the original agenda. We should have had a separate report on this. And I'm looking forward to the refer back to staff to have some proper information. Thank you.
Councillor Humfryes.
Yeah, through Mr. Mayor, and sorry, to referral. Yeah, I was in support of the referral. Then I heard Councillor Gallo. I was like, well, I guess not. Then I'm here. So I mean, I think it being added the way it was, we did a gorgeous grand opening. I'm very proud of the wild park. I know that Councillor Gallo had a huge effort in that. But to understand why we wouldn't have said dogs not allowed at the beginning is, I don't get it. So I do believe we have to do a consultation. We have to let the residents know, because they're probably out there walking their dogs right now. We don't have any signage or any rules to say otherwise. So whatever we've been doing is done. So we do have to do a very strong campaign to provide data on why not, all the articulation that Councillor Gallo mentioned, and also the feedback so that the towns and citizens know not to walk their dogs there. So I think it's important to come back so that it's clear, it's understood, and that residents stop. So I need that information in front of me so I can share that with residents as well. Thanks.
Councillor Gallo, second time. To the referral.
Thank you. Maybe we can have staff weigh in on maybe why the signs aren't there, or even take a step back and try to understand why this was even on an agenda for council approval if we already approved this. Through you, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Downey.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So first of all, the item was put on the agenda because clearly council had some interest in allowing dogs within park areas and trails. And so we felt it was important to not only identify where dogs could theoretically go, but reinforce where they could not go, and based on previous council approval, which is the reason we put the item on, so that council was fully aware that this is one area where dogs were not permitted with or without a leash. With regards to community consultation, I believe that this park serves the greater community. And if we are going to do a consultation, it needs to be the entire community and not just the residents.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, my question was two-phase, why the signs aren't there and why this was on the agenda.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, with regards to the signs, all the signs for this park are not up yet. We continue to do this park in a phase. So we have not completed all the signs. We will have this on these signs. At least we were proposing to have this on the signs. We want to make sure council is fully aware of it. If you would like us to hold off with some of those signs, we're happy to do that while we go through this consultation process.
Councillor.
I agree with the issue that had the signs been there, we wouldn't be in the position we're in. And I have no issue with consultation. And we have to balance the tremendous amount of work that's been done in strategic planning and developing that, and a balance of the predicament that we're in now, because all of a sudden we're saying you can't bring your dog there anymore, even though we let you up to now. And the pressure that we would have to have at this table in an election year from residents in that area that no doubt are going to come to us, fill these chambers and say, no, we want to walk our dog there because that's what we've been doing. And it's up to us and how strong we are in our principles, in our planning, in the massive amount of work. And I want to stress that that was done to say, this is the plan that we had for that area. My last question to Mr. Downey is, did this even need to be in front of council? Did you need direction from us? Clearly, you were going to be developing signs. Did you need direction from us to move forward? Do you already have it to implement those signs and make sure no dogs were allowed in the wildlife park? Through you, Mr. Mayor.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Our concern was this was approved in 2015. We are now 7 years later. We wanted to make sure council was fully aware what we were moving forward with the opening of this park. This is a recently completed park. We haven't put up all the signage. We haven't completed the park. Future phases are still going on. So we wanted to make sure that council was aware that this was the direction that we were taking and that they were comfortable with it.
Councillor.
I'm sorry, but we missed the boat. We missed the boat. When people started entering in there, we should have had those in there. We should have had those in there. And if it changes now because of that, very, very disappointed. If we end up, this council ends up changing that, the plan that David had implemented. Because of that, that's a sad day, very sad day for this town.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other comments to the referral? Before I call the vote, I'll just say I don't think that anyone's looking at changing, but I think that maybe Mr. Downey, and maybe if Ms. Smith's there, maybe if we can get this on the Engage Aurora. Engage, or I always get the two confused. Engage. If we can get that up on the website and do that community consultation, let them know that this is coming, this was part of the plan. And I think that's the important piece, is to let them know that this is what was part of the plan and for them to have that understanding. I don't think them all of a sudden walking up and seeing a sign there that says all of a sudden you can't bring your dog in after a year of doing it without having an understanding of why it's been done. I think that's inappropriate for us as well. That's why I think the referral is a good referral for us to look at that and get engagement. But I don't think that anyone's looking at deviating from our plans. It's just a matter of engaging and consulting with our residents. Councillor Gardner, did you want to say something for a second time on the referral?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Consultation implies that we're going to be listening to residents and their feedback. That's not the right word with this. Information to the residents, perhaps, but this is not a consultation process. That part has been done long ago. We may have dropped the ball with respect to signage and ensuring that information was going out to the new residents. But I don't think we can call this a consultation.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? Call the vote on the referral. That carries. So council, we move to 8.2.5B. And Councillor Kim, I got you pulling both. So this one is that staff be directed to develop an off-leash strategy, including park and trail location options and costs, and report back to council. Would you like to move it? Thank you. Would someone like to second that? Councillor Thompson, thank you. Councillor Kim, did you?
I don't have much to say. I think everyone voiced their around council table voiced their perspective. I think based on the comments that I heard, I believe we all have the same perspective, and so My view is the same as the view that I had last week on this item, which is that this dog park location should be not even considered. So.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Humfryes.
Through Mr. Mayor, can we actually just put the dog park location? We're asking staff to develop an off-lease strategy, including park and trail locations and options, with the exception of Darkwood detention. Just be specific, because we all believe this wasn't, with all kinds of reasons, parking. I wouldn't mind just highlighting that, because we all felt that way last week, right?
So, Councillor, my recommendation would, if council so does wish to, I mean, we all did vote down that location.
Right.
If we want to put it into the record on as far as from a council perspective, and so it's in the minutes and it's voted on saying that this is not a suitable location, I would ask that maybe you make an amendment and add a clause saying that council directs staff that this location is not a suitable location for a dog park. That way it is on the record. The residents have an understanding that we are not moving forward with this location.
Perfect.
And it's there.
Yep. I just want to be very clear that is to be excluded from
the strategy?
Yes, from strategy. Yeah.
Okay. Is not. So how about Mr. Clerk,
Not
did you get that? That it's not a suitable location and excluded from the strategy
in
list of options.
list. Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
And then I will ask for a seconder on that, and then I'll get it on the screen for everyone to see. Councillor Thompson, thank you. Then I'll get it on the screen so we can all see. So Councillor,
And just through you,
Humfryes,
Mr.
now this is just speaking to the amendment.
Just speaking to the amendment, just to the amendment that we exclude this park, just to reiterate again to the residents and to around the table, it's not a surprise. All of us felt unanimous about the location, that it was not appropriate for all the reasons that the residents have brought forward. And, just not a well-suited site. So I think staff have heard, and we'll go back to look at the strategy, look at appropriate locations, and come back with suitable sites. So looking forward to that strategy coming back, because we do have a need for this type of service for some residents, but it has to be the right location. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Humfryes. Okay, Councillor Kelly, I was going to ask her, is this
Can we get
to
it up
the
there?
amendment? No? Okay. So
Not
I'll
ready?
just wait for the amendment to come up, just so everyone can see it. I'm going to read it for Councillor Gartner as well as anyone that's at home and doesn't see it. Okay, the amendment is that Darkwood detention area be excluded from the list of options. Is that good, Councillor Humfryes? Okay, and Councillor Thompson, you seconded. That's good. Okay. Is there any other comments or questions on this? Otherwise, I'm going to call a vote on the amendment. Call the vote on the amendment. That carries unanimously. So back to the main motion as amended. Councillor Humfryes, you still have the floor? You're good? Councillor Thompson?
Thank you. Just quickly to summarize, as I said last week, my preferred course of action was to develop an off-leash strategy. I just didn't like the approach that we were taking with regards to continually identifying areas and not necessarily, doing the homework that we needed to do to be able to clearly identify where the most appropriate place is. I'm in support of the amendment that Councillor Gilliland put forward to provide not just the strategies, but also some concepts and ideas around potential locations. And I look forward to the future discussion, because yes, there is a need, but it's got to be the right fit.
Thank you. Councillor Gallo?
Thank you. And I just wanted to clarify my view of communication. Clearly, we dropped the ball in this case, and whatever we do going forward, and I believe we all been very clear to staff that whatever locations that we choose, it has to be a fulsome discussion with the public. And just to add, that's very different than the wildlife park and communication with an existing plan. This is something completely new into a neighborhood that absolutely merits a communication strategy, but it's very different than the item before.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions to this? Before I call the vote, not much more to add other than the fact that I've never been in favor of putting a dog park in one of our residential neighborhoods. I think there's more ideal locations. I think Councillor Gartner as well has mentioned the hydro corridor. If we can look at doing something in that regards, I know that I've mentioned to the CAO as well as for us to look at having some conversations with Hydro One and seeing what we can do in that area, and then having the consultation in the area. No matter what we do, it needs to have adequate parking, and it needs to not have an impact to the residents within the neighborhood of that area. And so I'm glad that we've moved in this direction, and I'll look forward to seeing that strategy. But we definitely, as was mentioned, we need a strategy that fits for what works for our community and for our residents, and provides services that ultimately are a benefit to our residents. And so that's what we continuously strive to do. And I think that's ultimately where this strategy needs to be and where we will go. So I'll call the vote. Oh, Councillor Gartner, you got your hand up. Sorry.
Mr. Mayor, I was just going to echo your words and say that there absolutely has to be parking wherever we decide, and we cannot inundate a neighborhood with parking. It would be unfair to the neighborhood. Thank you.
Absolutely. And I think another one that I think we all mentioned now that you brought up is fencing. And I think we all want to see that within that strategy. And I think we're going to talk about it. I don't think a dog park can exist without fencing. So, and that's not just for the safety of the residents, but it's also for the safety of the dogs as well. So I'll call the vote. That carries unanimously. I will, before we move to the next one, everyone, thank you very much for coming. Yes, it is hot. It gets hot in here. You are correct. You know what? It's because we haven't had this many people in here for a long time. So it gets very hot. Thank you very much for coming out this evening. And yeah, have a good evening. Yeah, you're more than welcome to stay. We have a whole bunch of items left. So have a good evening, everyone. Okay, council, we are moving to 8.1.8. And this one is the train whistle cessation program assessment update. 8.1.8, let me just pull it up. The recommendation out of general committee was that the report number PDS 22-066 be received. 2, that a project with total capital budget authority of $95,000 be included in the 2023 capital budget for council review and approval in support of the detailed design and peer review of a level crossing at St. John Sideroad. 3, that York Region be requested to implement a 24-hour train whistle cessation for the level crossing at St. John Sideroad on the Barry Go line. 4, that York Region be requested to budget $1 million in 2023 budget to implement the necessary crossing upgrades for anti-whistling. And 5, that the train whistle cessation program not be implemented on roads under the town's jurisdiction. Councillor Gallo, you pulled this one. Did you want to move the recommendation? No. I know, but I need someone to move. Councillor Thompson, second. Someone like the second? No? Councillor Kim? Thank you. Councillor Gallo, you pulled it. What would you like to do?
I'd like to ask a question, and then I'd like to potentially split 5. Not sure to who, but if we were to remove the last one, does it affect everything else in the resolution? And would it still leave the door open for the potential train whistle, what's the term? Anti-whistling for town roads?
Well, Mr. Clerk.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I would say if number 5 is voted on separately and defeated, then that would allow a motion to be brought forward, a motion this evening to allow train whistle cessation on a town road.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
Certainly. So if recommendation number 5, clause number 5 in the recommendation was defeated this evening, that would mean that a motion could be made to have a report back on train whistle cessation for a town-owned road.
And I think I would have to have consensus to remove it from the clause. It would almost be like defeating it, essentially.
Yeah, at this point, I just wanted to defeat it and then take some time to really analyze and figure out whether we really want to go in that direction. But I didn't want to affect the rest of the resolution because I believe in the rest of it. That was it.
Well, I mean, I guess, Councillor, I mean, just from a procedural standpoint, whether it passed or failed, if it failed, absolutely, then it fails. If it passes, all that it would mean is that you couldn't really revisit it unless there was a reconsideration vote for 6 months. After 6 months, you could come back with another motion if you really wanted to.
Yeah, it's buying us that 6 months, basically.
Okay.
So I'll wait. There's no other speakers, but if not, I'd like to just vote.
You wanted to split it. So you want to do
1 to 4 and then 5 separately.
So 1 to 4, and then we'll do 5 separately, correct? Okay, so we'll vote on 1 to 4, everyone first. Okay, so 1 to 4. Call the vote. That carries. Number 5. I'll vote. And it's not seconded by Councillor Gallo. No, it's not even moved by you. This was moved by, it was moved by Councillor Thompson, seconded by Councillor Kim. Councillor Gallo and I, we already started the vote before. What was the button up? Hold. He just wanted to split the vote. No one else popped up on the screen, and so I called the vote. I think Councillor Gallo even mentioned that no one wants to speak. That carries. Okay, moving 8.1.7. Councillor Gardner, you pulled this one, which is the minor site plan approval application for 306 St. John Sideroad, St. Anne's School. The recommendation is just to receive for information. I was just making sure I read that correct. Because I was like, to receive for information. Councillor Gardner, did you want to move that?
No.
You didn't want to receive for information? Okay. Councillor Thompson, Councillor Humfryes? Okay. Councillor Gardner?
Thank you.
Yeah, this is not approval. This is just to receive for information. Yes.
I know it's a little strange. So I would like some clarity through you, Mr. Mayor, to Mr. Ramuno. I'd like to know how an almost 8,000 square foot structure could be considered minor variance, and also how a structure that size could be considered portable?
Mr. Ramuno?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, considered minor because it's an existing building that's being repurposed from a residence to a private school. The addition of portables is also considered minor, as portables are typical additions to schools.
Councillor?
Mr. Ramuno, what are you using to consider this minor? I mean, I know portables are considered minor because they're easily moved. But this is an almost 8,000 square foot structure. So to call this portable and to put it in the context that we usually think of portables for a school building, it just doesn't jive.
I got a point of order. Councillor Gilliland, point of order. Oh, 1 second, Councillor. I'll get it. 1 second.
Thank you. I just kind of want to reiterate that this is to receive. So this is something that was already approved. And I feel like this conversation is something that we could have offline. Forgive me, Mr. Chair or Mr. Mayor. This is strictly for us to receive. There's really no decision-making from council at this point. And this is just simply to allow council to know the process in which it's in, correct?
I'm inclined to agree, but I was willing to give Councillor Gardner a little bit of latitude. I was going to try to rein her in at some point, but if we are willing, or unless you want me to stop her off right now, I'm willing to agree with you on that, but I'm inclined to allow her to continue just a little bit.
So long as it doesn't end up in a long in-depth conversation in a report of something that we've already talked about and whatnot, then that's fine. But I just kind of wanted to make sure we all realize this is to receive.
Thank you very much. Councillor Gardner, if I'll just ask you if you can, I mean, this is received. If there's a lot of stuff that you want to go in depth, I would ask that maybe you have that conversation with Mr. Ramuno offline. And just to reiterate, Mr. Ramuno, maybe I can just add in, the building already exists. It's just the minor variance is the fact that it's changing use. Or am I?
To you, Mr. Mayor, that's correct. The existing main structure exists.
So the 8,000 square foot structure exists?
Well, no, the main residence is larger than that. I'm just trying to locate the dimensions of the portable. I think Councillor Gardner is speaking to the additional structure of the portable. Okay.
Councillor Gardner, I'll let you continue.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And this is addressing the information in the report. I've never heard of an almost 8,000 square foot structure to be considered portable. And I find it, yes, the building, we are changing that to a school, but I don't understand how we can then say, well, we can have this almost 8,000 square foot portable building serving the school. That's certainly not the intent of what a portable is. And I can't see how we could consider that minor. So, and maybe Mr. Ramuno can't add anything to what he said. If he can, I'd like to hear it.
Mr. Ramuno?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I think the only thing I can add there is that there's a delegation bylaw that does delegate to staff approval of minor site plan applications. It was felt this one meets those criteria. I just want to make it clear, though, staff are reviewing and have reviewed the application, the background studies that were submitted, and apart from the addition of the parking lot and the portable and a portion of the field. There will be future phases. They will be dealt with under separate applications. But the application that was presented to council last week for information, in my opinion, meets those criteria as being a minor site plan application.
Councillor?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I would just say for the record that an 8,000 square foot building, I don't know how that can be considered minor. And I object to that. With respect to the access to the site plan, access to the building, I'm not sure how we can separate one from the other. So should this not also include the access road?
Mr. Ramono?
Through Mr. Mayor, we indicated in the report, and I think in the previous zoning report as well, that that is a separate site plan application that deals specifically with the access from St. John's to the school. But that is a separate site plan application.
Councillor?
Thank you. And may I ask if we have received any more information from MECP on the road, on the trees to that road?
Mr. Ramono?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I haven't seen anything, but I have heard from the Beacon Consulting that they are working with the ministry to deal with that matter.
Councillor? I would appreciate if you could provide the permission, because my understanding is that we've already issued permission to remove 101 trees that would be in the location of that road. I don't know how we could do that without approval from the province. So if you would please provide the approval, that would be great. Before, I don't know what the situation is with taking the trees down. I'm sure we will be considering anything until after nesting season. Would that be a correct assumption, Mr. Ramono?
Mr. Ramono?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the trees that have been removed to date, a tree permit application was received. There are some remaining trees that will be removed at a future date, but I will certainly inform council when that's going to happen once we receive the information from the ministry and the timing of that, the removal of those trees.
Councillor?
Could you please provide clarity on which trees have been removed?
Mr. Ramono, do you know which trees have been removed so far?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I believe in our report last week or 2 weeks ago, there was a total of close to 100 trees. They've removed approximately 40, but that's just off the top of my head. And the ones that were removed were part of the tree removal application that was submitted.
Councillor?
And am I to understand that the ministry has approved the removal of those 40 trees?
Mr. Ramono?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I know that our park staff were involved in that. I'm not sure if the ministry had to be involved in the removal of those trees based on the time that they were removed. But I do know that the consultant has been working closely with the ministry step by step in their tree removal application.
Councillor?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Bruno, perhaps you could provide some more information in writing to council about the trees that have been removed and where we're at with the ministry approval.
Mr. Ramono?
Could that be done, Mr. Bruno?
Certainly, we can do that.
When would you be, thank you. When would you be able to do that?
Mr. Ramono?
Over the next day or two. Certainly.
Thank you, Mr. Ramono.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Councillor Gallo?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just through you to Mr. Ramono. Our future, this is a motion to receive. We're not approving anything tonight, but our future site plan application is going to be coming before us, or do you feel that they would be minor in nature and would be done under your department without council?
Mr. Ramono?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Council Gallo, if you're referring to future applications that may be submitted for the St. Anne's property. Again, it depends on the scale of those applications, but we'll certainly inform council when we do receive an application. And I know part of our bylaw is, even if they are dealt with at a staff level, that we do inform council of those applications that have been received and those that have been delegated to staff. But as soon as the next application comes in, we'll certainly inform council of any future applications.
Councillor?
That's fine. I'll have my questions offline. I think there's some big ones that are coming, but that should be coming to council.
Thank you. Councillor Gardner, you want to speak a second time?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mino, with the other part of the property, this is the only part of the property that's been changed to institutional. The rest of the property remains as it was. Oak Ridge's Marine General Rule. So before anything can be done with that property, my understanding is that environmental assessments have to come to council about the rest of the property before anything else can be done on it.
Mr. Ramuno?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, so the balance of the draft plan of subdivision is part of a planning applications, official plan, zoning, and draft plan of subdivision for the final phase. We're working with the applicant and the various departments and agencies to finalize a review, and we will be scheduling a report to council on that final phase. It's official plan zoning. The majority of those lands are currently zoned suburban residential and designated and zoned suburban residential, but official plan amendments and zoning bylaw applications are submitted to facilitate the residential development, essentially the increase in the number of lots and reduction of the lot sizes as currently allowed under the OP suburban residential designation.
Councillor?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Bruno, I think we're talking about two different things. The report originally suggested that that a portion of land be changed to IXX. And I believe that we split that into I, institutional, to allow the school building to go forward. But the other portion of that original motion had to do with lands that were adjacent to the school that were intended to hold or was hoping to hold school facilities. So I'm not sure we're talking about the same thing. Are you referring to this portion of land that was split into I and then remained ORM until we had those environmental assessments? I'm not talking about the residential building.
Mr. Ramuno?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, just to clarify, the previous zoning application approved by council, I guess back in February, dealt with the rezoning of the approximately 10-acre parcel for the St. Anne's private school, and that was zoned to an institutional zoning category. So I think you're referring to that. What I was referring to was a balance of the land holding that's subject to the future residential phase.
Councillor?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Moon, are you talking about the portion of land that was originally brought to council with the suggestion that it would become IXX?
Mr. Ramuno?
So through you, Mr. Mayor, I believe that is the portion of the lands that were zoned back in February to institutional. And if my memory serves me, that really relates to the lands that are subject to the St. Anne's private school site plan application, which includes the existing residence that's being repurposed to private school and associated portable and fields, athletic fields.
Councillor?
Are we referring to the same land that was suggested to do a residence and also, I believe, some sort of an entertainment facility?
Mr. Ramuno?
Through Mr. Mayor, I apologize, I'm not aware of that, but what I can do is certainly provide the additional information with the appropriate maps to indicate exactly what's been zoned institutional, what was zoned previously for residential, the first phase to the west, and the remaining land holdings that are still subject to council consideration as part of the OP zoning and draft plan of subdivision application.
Mr. CEO, did you want to add something?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, since this was before Mr. Ramuno arrived here, the original proposal, my recollection of this file is the original proposal suggested a institutional special zoning which would have limited the uses specifically to those that the school intended to eventually have on the site. Council at the time removed the special and just turned it into institutional. And that institutional included all of those ones that were listed and a host of other ones that the school wasn't really interested in. So the net effect of making it just institutional was to actually broaden the possible land uses beyond what that was in the special.
Thank you, Councillor.
So it's not clear to me, Mr. CAO, through you, Mr. Mayor, to Mr. CAO, the report that was brought to us that wanted to change a portion of land to IX.
Councillor, I'm going to say Councillor Thompson, yes, go ahead. Councillor Thompson.
As was brought up earlier, it is a motion to receive. Now we're talking about previous reports.
Yeah.
Mr. Ramono has already indicated that he's quite willing to answer all questions through email offline. I would agree that some latitude was given to give an understanding on a minor site application, but now we've delved really into the weeds here. If Councillor Gardner has further questions, perhaps she can take it offline with Mr. Ramono. And if she's opposed to anything, she's free to put a motion on the floor to change what's here, but we are only talking about receiving for information.
I agree with your point of order, Councillor. Councillor Gardner, did you want to put something forward or?
Mr. Mayor, I really, I think we just have to look back to our report on May 3rd to completely understand what I'm talking about. I'm sure Mr. Muno does, so I look forward to his answer.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Call the vote. Councillor Gardner?
I just submitted, Mr. Mayor. I was a bit
Oh,
late. I
yep,
apologize.
it just came in. Thank you. That carries. Okay, next is 8.1.5, and that's the neighborhood park. It was mentioned it would be referred. Councillor Thompson, did you want to move that referral? Thank you. For back to staff, seconder. Councillor Kim, thank you. Any comments? Questions? Councillor Gallo?
Just through Mr. Mayor, timing. When will this come back?
Mr. Seal?
To Mr. Mayor, we're not quite sure. There's a range of options about how we might deal with this. It most likely though wouldn't come back this term, as we're not sure we're going to end up with a successful bid that is within a decent price range.
Councillor?
So the park will not be built when would the park start? It would be a next term council decision to move forward.
Mr. Seal?
Most likely, yes. To you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor?
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions? Call the vote. Councillor Gardner?
My answer is yes. Again, sorry, it's delayed.
Okay, thank you. That carries. Council, did you want to take your break now, or did you just want to keep going? We have 3 motions. Just keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going. All right. First motion, Councillor Hump. Oh. No, we already did that. We did that motion. We received and referred it to you. So we did 2. Okay. Councillor Humfryes, your motion, private members bill C23, Keira's law. Would you like to move as is? Thank you. Seconder for this, Councillor Gilland. Councillor Humfryes, floor is yours.
Thank you to you, Mr. Mayor. I believe the motion is self-explanatory, but I'd like to share a little information about the motion behind private bill members C233, Keira's law. So who is Keira? Keira was a little girl who words truly can't describe. She was compassionate, innocent, and playful and wanted the people around her to be happy. She loved vanilla cake, unicorns, rainbows, colorful clothing, and being outdoors in nature. She preferred the cold weather over hot summer sun. She believed in magic and princesses. She was an old soul and with an understanding far beyond her years, and she connected to people of all ages and from all walks of life. She was articulate and bright with a scientific mind. When she heard about injustice in the world, she was mad and wanted to do something to help. It sometimes seemed that she saw life as a battle between good and evil and wanted the good to prevail. She always wanted to be remembered, and she will always touch many lives through her legacy of child safety. On February 9th, 2020, Kagan was killed by her biological father in an act of revenge filicide. Family court must change. Domestic violence is relevant to parenting, and children like Keira deserve better. 30 to 40 children a year in Canada are killed by violent parents, often after symptoms such as the courts and children's aid services fail to protect them. There are innumerable Canadian children who experience violence and abuse at the hands of a parent who is supposed to really protect them. This will lead to lifelong mental and physical health consequences for them. The motion before you this evening supports private members Bill C-233. I hope that you will help demonstrate that we are united in the support of this bill and that we need to protect our children. It's very important. We heard Jennifer speak this evening, all her courage and bravery to move forward. And there's been lots of movement from other municipalities. And as Jennifer mentioned to me earlier, they have the attention of the federal government and the municipalities. And she was hoping that we'd have more engagement from a provincial perspective. And as this motion moves forward and hopefully forward to pass, we'll have more understanding from a provincial level and have many programs and education to help judges and people in authority to make the right decisions when these things come before them. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Humphries. Councillor Thompson.
Thank you. And thank you, Councillor Humphries, for bringing it forward. I certainly support it. I just had one question for you. I did note in Resolution 2, you asked for copies to be sent to the various members of federal government. Is there any particular reason why you didn't also include perhaps further advocacy efforts by circulating amongst other municipalities or FCM? As we've seen in the past, I mean, the more weight we can bring to bear on this situation, the better it can be. So I didn't know if there was any particular reason why you chose just to identify those and not a broader spectrum.
Councillor Thompson, I've seen so many of the municipalities that have started doing this. I didn't think that way, but yes, we should. I would love that. If that could be added, that would be fantastic. Thank you.
Forward an amendment on the floor that this motion be circulated to the various municipalities here in Ontario as well as FCM.
The amendment is that it also be forwarded to 444 municipalities in Ontario and to FCM. Is that friendly? Everyone good with it? I'm taking the friendly. If the mover and the seconders okay. Seconders okay. Okay. We can just add that. Do we need to make it as a separate clause or just add it into the like a list? We'll make it a separate. Okay. So we'll make it a separate. That's fine.
That's it. Other than that, great job.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions on Councillor Humphries' motion? Otherwise, I'll call the vote. Councillor Humphries, thank you for bringing this forward. I know some other municipalities have already put this forward. And as I said, I think this is important that we voice our thoughts and our opinions. And I know this is going to be going to third reading in the House of Commons. And so it's important that they know where we stand and that our MPs know where our thoughts are and where we stand on this, and that we think this is a good thing as a law to be enacted. So thank you very much for bringing this forward. Council, I'll call the vote. That carries unanimously. Council, next, we have Councillor Kim's motion, request for traffic control signals. Councillor Kim.
Move it as is.
Move as is. Seconder. Councillor Gilliland. Councillor Kim, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The genesis of this motion came several weeks ago from the residents of this neighborhood. As we've known since this enclave of 500 or so residents, since the developments, they were completely ostracized or separated from the rest of the community. In order to participate at the SARC, at the recreation center, they would have to essentially cross Wellington, where just a short time ago it was 70 kilometers an hour. Now it's down to 60, but I don't think that really makes a difference. It's just a dangerous crossing with high speeding cars. In addition, another activity that residents in this neighborhood and throughout Aurora, they would cross the street and to participate in the trails in the wilderness park. So it's hard to do that when you have a huge broad road as Wellington. And so they approached council, and on two occasions, Councillor Gilliland, Councillor Humfryes, myself, and the mayor met with them on a site visit along with staff and York Regional traffic analysts to hear their concerns and to listen to them. And so, I think a traffic light at this intersection is necessary. Some may say it's not because it's not, serving us, a certain population threshold, but, we can't leave any sections of the community at risk when there are two major town facilities that are just right across the street. So I think it'd be negligent on our part not to look at all options. And, I didn't think that there was a fair option because this is a regional road. But Mayor Marakis provided a great solution, which, members of council were not aware of, which is the motion at hand. I'm merely penning it, but it was certainly Mayor Marakis's came from his genesis as from his experience and wisdom at York Region. So I would say that this motion is just as much, Councillor Gilliland's and Humfryes, mine, and the mayor's, as we've been partnering with the residents for the last couple of months in this regard. So I don't have anything else to say, but thank the mayor for bringing this option to fruition to residents, because we didn't think that this option was available. And I'll leave the one section for the mayor to speak on it, but the mayor, I believe, can approach this to York Region where they can continue with the costs or potentially reimburse us, so he can clarify. But there is an option that or potential that the region can assist in this matter.
Councillor Kim, I appreciate you bringing that up. I will clarify one thing. They will not reimburse, but I'll get into that if anyone asks those questions. Councillor Humfryes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you very much for this motion, Councillor Kim and Mr. Mayor. And I know all of council, Councillor Gilliland, we've been very engaged with the residents. Residents have been very good with communication, and I've had a little, I think, extra experience with this area due to where Brad works, my husband, and just watching the traffic and the residents trying to navigate through this really interesting, kind of awkward intersection. So I know that the warrants don't meet there. We've heard this before, but there's all kinds of safety concerns. I mean, the residents can't even walk. They can't leave their little subdivision. There's no sidewalks on the east side. So they've got to, unfortunately, I'm sorry, south side, my apologies. So without this, who knows how many years they'll be in this situation. And really, one of the residents said to me, what are we waiting for something to happen? And then all of a sudden, we'll make sure we'll have some sort of safety measures for people to get across safely and walk along the road safely. So looking forward to this. Hopefully it'll come to fruition and we can get moving on this. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor
regards to the motion, I'm glad it is before us. We did, quite a few of us did visit the site, and the fact that there is a lack of a sidewalk there and safe crossing really is proven to be a very dangerous situation. We witnessed people in the middle of the intersection trying to dodge traffic. People in that neighborhood, they may go to the SARC, they may go to the school in that neighborhood across the street. They may want to access the trail system, but everything seems to be right across the street. But not to also forget that there's a fire station right there. And, there has been a call from the fire department as well to have a light there. They find it very quite tricky, and the timing that they have in order to leave that area, they feel has been hindered by the lack of a light. And I do know there are GPS signals that can be installed on either end, but the fact is, because it's so busy, that by the time those stoplights were to turn red, the ones that were further east and further west, you'd still have to wait for traffic, and it still would mitigate some of the time to respond. Since the fire chief has first presented, I know some changes and zoning changes have occurred in respect to residential, from a retail to a residential perspective. So there is going to be even more increased residential in that area. I just want to point out, if and when this does go to York Region Council, that Chief Lang did express to me that if this does go there, he's more than happy to come and delegate and speak with his presentation at that time. So hopefully, Mayor Maracus, you could reach out to him when and let him know when that report does go there. And he'd be happy to speak on behalf of the fire department in support of what we're trying to advocate for today.
Thank you. Councillor Gallo.
Thank you. So I guess we've established that there's an issue, and I've heard many times that it's dangerous, and I have no reason to believe it isn't dangerous. Yet York Region and their I guess expertise and whatever guideline they follow, it's not warranted. I don't have that document, so I don't know, were we right at the cutting edge of being warranted, or was it really, really low? And if someone knows, happy to hear that. The issue that I have is, first off, when we developed that community, why didn't we anticipate this if it is so dangerous? In terms of the town side, and if it is so dangerous, I have an issue with York Region's baseline and how they calculate, how they determine whether or not a light is there. To me, those are the issues, because we should not have to have residents in our community come to us, lobby us to put this in place, to actually make the taxpayers of this town, when it's really a regional road, we shouldn't be paying for this, and have to move it forward early, because I suspect at some point when there's more redevelopment, and if the southeast corner or southwest corner of Leslie and Wellington gets developed, a lot more residents will be in that area. We need to figure out what those triggers are, because we shouldn't have these residents. It's not up to them to lobby us to figure out how to make their community safe. It's not their responsibility. It's ours, it's the region's, and clearly we failed on both sides. The only alternative is it's not as bad as what's being perceived. And I don't believe that to be true. There's no way that amount of residents, council members, would be this heavily involved if it isn't an issue. And the fire department, I'm on the committee, so I heard them say there's a need for it in that area too. So above and beyond this, which I'll agree to, and I hope when it comes to 2023 budget, that maybe there's a little more information that we can, or who's ever there, can review and make an informed decision. In addition to that, at some level, we have to figure out, when we develop areas like that, and that's on us, how quickly can we put sidewalks in there? Should we have had the developer put in those sidewalks? We know where the SARC is. It's not, that was there. We know people are going to be living there. We know we're going to want them to walk to the trails and to the Sark. There's a gap there that is not the responsibility of the residents. It's our responsibility to figure that out. So thank you for bringing it up. I'm glad we're moving in this direction. I hope we can get a little more information once it comes to budget. And I hope even more that the mayor can convince York Region to pay for it.
Sorry, I'll do my best. I'll let everyone know some of the things at the region, but Councillor Thompson.
Thank you. And certainly, I echo the comments of my colleagues, but specifically the sidewalk one. And I know there's been some conversation. Councillor Gallo raised it and as well previously, but certainly when you look at the development, I mean, the residents don't even have a choice. There's a light at Leslie, there's a light at Mavernack, but they can't even walk to those lights, even if they so choose, because there's no sidewalk to connect them to that. And so that too needs to be resolved over and above the addition of this light. We know that there's talk about development at the corner of Leslie and Wellington. And certainly, I think it's got to be put on the radar that sidewalk deficiency needs to be looked at and either addressed through us or any future development application that comes for Leslie and Wellington. They got to have connectivity, not just from those lights, but be able to move around. And for whatever reason, that just like the light was missed when the development of that area was put together, and so hopefully we'll be able to address it in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Gillen, before I go to you for a second time, Mr. Ramuno, is the infrastructure there at that intersection for a signalized intersection?
To you, Mr. Mayor, I recall a number of years ago when I was here when we dealt with when council approved the south side application. The region was heavily involved, of course, because they approved the location design of that access point. At that time, they didn't agree that lights were warranted, but what we did do, we had the developer install the actual conduits on the south side for a future traffic signal. So I think the rough ones are in place.
So, okay, that's great. So the council that they did do some due diligence and did have some foresight of what was to come and make sure that infrastructure was there. And just so everyone's perspective, I will send us, and I think Councillor Gilliland, Councillor Humphries, and Councillor Kim have seen the warrants from the region. I will make sure that all of you get this. It didn't come from me; it came from the traffic analysts at the region that when they were dealing with the councillors on site. So they have the councillor at 56 and 59%. Unfortunately, from a regional perspective, one of those has to hit 100%. And if one of those two meets 100%, or both justifications are at least 80% satisfied, then they look at another warrant that they can look at moving it forward. But they have stated that they've come out. They come out basically. They've been coming out almost on a yearly basis since 2020. In 2017, it was 32%. 2020, it was 50%. 2021 in September, it was 58%. And April 26th in 2022, just recently, it was 59%. And the reason they do the 10 years as far as the operational fees, because they anticipate that that's probably how long it would take for this to get to those counts. I know Councillor Thompson did ask me at one point, could I get a timeline from the region? They won't give me that number. So as much as we'd like to, and they will not reimburse. This has come before regional council from Vaughan as well as from King, and both times I think actually King didn't ask for reimbursement. And it went forward very smoothly. Vaughan did ask for reimbursement, and regional council was not obliged to move forward in that direction. They felt that if the local municipality felt that there was a need to move forward in this sooner than what was warranted through regional traffic analysis, then it was up to the local municipality to fund the go ahead on the intersection. So that's where it stands. If this is the motion essentially that Vaughan put forward and that was recommended by the traffic department at the region, if we wanted to get this completed ahead of schedule. and hence this is before you. Obviously, I'm chairing, and so Councillor Kim was very gracious enough to put this forward. So I hope that answers, but I will get the rest of council that report from the region. Councillor Gilliland, second time.
Thank you. Just going to speak to the percentages too. So you took, that's great. You covered that. You know more about how it works at the region anyway. I guess the only thing I wanted to point out in addition to that was it is kind of unfortunate that, all these data collection was done during, COVID times when there are less vehicles on the street. So I can assure you that it's probably, once we go more back to normal, that it'll probably increase tenfold just because of it is connected to a main artery going to the highway. In addition to that, I just wanted to kind of point out, they did stipulate that they do follow policy that's consistent with the Ministry of Transportation. And one of the questions that I had questioned at a provincial level, if that is, where their policies are going to align, is that maybe their policy needs to be relooked at. I didn't see any justifications in their descriptions or anything there that actually gave merit to whether or not that there was emergency services there as well. And I think that that alone should be a separate justification and given points to as a reason why it should be justified. That to me should be an important point that has been missed. So whether it's a policy that needs to be reviewed at a regional level or at a provincial level, I'm not sure, but I think that's something that's worth looking at. I guess I also want to point out just the seriousness of that is one of the fire trucks was in an accident. They were in a collision with a dump truck and that fire truck was written off. So it's a serious issue and clearly what needs to be safer and especially for emergency response, because this is just not responding just to the neighbors across the street, because these policies and justification do speak with the surrounding neighbors and pedestrian people who are traveling on that road. But when we're talking emergency services, they are responding to the entire community, a bigger picture. And so I do think that that merit needs to be looked at. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Otherwise, before I go to Councillor Kim to wrap up on his motion, I'll just say that definitely it would have to be at the provincial level, just because, I mean, you stated, and it's been stated at York Region many times, that their policy is consistent with the MTO traffic signal criteria. And so therefore, if there's any changes that need to be made, it needs to be done at the provincial level. So I would say, let's lobby our MPPs and say that those changes need to be heard and need to be made. We'll see, I guess, after June 2nd. Well, we can lobby who we will be lobbying at that time. So, Councillor Kim, would you like to finish up?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for clarifying the regional process and what we can expect. Hope for the best, but anticipate not the best. I agree with Councillor Gallo. This should, we all felt when we had our discussion with the residents that this should be a regional responsibility, that we shouldn't take care of a traffic light. Their response was that this indeed is a dangerous area, but from a priority perspective, there were several other dangerous areas throughout York Region that had higher priorities, and there was nothing we could do to convince them otherwise. So we'd have to take matters into our own hands, unfortunately. The residents didn't want to wait 2, 3, 4 years for a trigger event to happen, whether that be an accident or whether York Region finally came to the senses and said, this is, top priority now. So I didn't really see any other option, and hence this motion. So I thank everyone here for their perspective and their support. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll call the vote. That carries unanimously. Councillor Thompson, your motion's next. mandatory firefighter certification. Would you like to move as is? Thank you. Seconder, Councillor Humfryes. Councillor Thompson, go ahead.
Thank you. As stated earlier, certainly, the view of many is that, firefighter certification, is a step in the right direction. However, there were concerns expressed with the draft regulations that came down, concerns related to consultations, the implied costs, and a number of other issues. And so really, when this issue was raised at JCC and we had that conversation, myself, the chair of JCC, Christina Bizance, and Deputy Chief Inglis, got together and worked on this motion so that we could further the advocacy efforts of AMO, and also not just on behalf of our residents, but also, support other municipalities, because we recognize the fact that there are costs associated with this, and it is being essentially, pushed down to the municipality to cover these. And there is no plan in place. The timing of it is challenging to begin with, to be able to implement this and meet those timelines. And so I just think that at any time, the province needs to give proper consultation with municipalities. We need to work together on these kind of issues. We all agree that in principle, it's a good thing, but it always comes down to the details and the regulations themselves. And there needs to be that concerted effort to collaborate together. And so AMO, which is an advocacy body for all municipalities in Ontario, did a fairly thorough job of being able to raise some of these issues and trying to further spotlight the concerns being expressed by municipalities and fire chiefs around Ontario. And this motion really just supports their efforts, continues to say that further discussion is needed. And even more importantly, a plan needs to be put into place to support municipalities be able to pay for these. Because as we heard from our deputy chief, the costs can be substantial, and we're in a better position than most. And so if you look at, our fellow municipalities as a whole in Ontario, this is a huge bill collectively. And so again, there needs to be further discussion and collaboration with the province to be able to figure out how to get from A to B in regards to this. And so really, the motion was presented to Newmarket a few weeks ago. They have since adopted it. It's the exact same motion as you see before us, with the exception of, Town of Aurora versus Town of Newmarket. But hopefully, happy to answer any questions, but hopefully this council will be in support of it, and it will move on, and other municipalities again will also choose to be supportive so that we can get some resolution with regards to the concerns expressed.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other comments or questions? Councillor, thank you for bringing this forward, and I'll once again thank you, Deputy Chief. I think he's still on the line, but I just thank him again for showing up and going through this with us. Call vote. That carries unanimously. New business. Councillor Gallo.
I don't know if it's new business or not, but if someone could provide some information around the use of the council chambers. I know there was an event here for the Tigers, and there was some chatter online, and could someone provide some clarity as to how that event happened in the council chambers and what the protocol is?
Like, does anyone want to speak to permitting? Ms. McDougall, I believe someone can permit out the chamber.
True, Mr. Mayor. Certainly spaces within Town Hall, with the exception of, I think, the tannery is open for permit availability for user groups, with exception, depending on what is available, the timing. Obviously, this is meant for municipal business, but at the same time, if it's available, we've had weddings in here, for example, Skylight Gallery. So through our department, if somebody's interested, they can certainly follow up with our staff to see what's available.
Councillor?
Thank you. And that was a permitted event?
Yes, it was.
So we don't, could we confirm that?
Confirm. I'll confirm.
The only other, I'll speak to it later. I have some other things.
You'll speak to it. Sorry, what?
That's it for new business.
Okay. Councillor Thompson? Councillor Kim? Councillor Humfryes?
Yes. Through you, Mr. Mayor, we know we had quite an exceptional weekend in the town of Aurora, and I won't ask staff to answer now because it's something to think about, but the Heritage District in particular was hit very hard in some real incredible circumstances. So thankful that nobody was hurt. So I know it's not easy, and I know we've got so much on our plate to do the regular day-to-day business. But if there's anything we could do to help some relief of some of those main areas where they have so much debris, they've been on their own, most of them, for putting power back to their homes. They're in just a lot of trouble. The neighbors have come together so strongly to help each other. Chainsaws, people are out for the 4 full days, like from Saturday, Sunday, Monday, today, still just chopping wood and helping each other out like crazy. But if there's anything we do in certain streets, I'm not asking for the whole town, but just certain areas, I would really appreciate it. I'm not asking staff to answer right now, but anything that can be done to help these really critical areas would be really appreciated.
Thank you. Councillor Elyse, new business?
Thank you. Just a question through you, Mr. Mayor, to Mr. Nadarozny. Currently, we are still reviewing our emergency preparedness document, if you can confirm that. And if so, are we covering topics for some inclement weather or these catastrophic events? Is that something that's going to be covered in this draft?
Through Mr. Chair, that plan refers more to like the declaring of emergency, but we have had some discussions today about sort of something that falls just short of declaring an emergency, a more less significant event. And while much of the information is on our website, we agree that it's not easily found at the moment that it's needed in these kinds of events. So our manager of communications has already worked on a strategy to be able to bring that forward and to take the information that's there, also customize it for the event, and provide it more front and center on the website in these situations. Most of our interaction over the weekend was through social media. We actually had no searches on our website related to the storm, ironically, and I believe nearly 20 social media inquiries for information. So that was where our efforts were directed, but we can do a better job of highlighting that information on our website when an event actually occurs in the future.
Thank you. And I'll just, Councillor, I'll just add as well. Our CEO mentioned that we've had those discussions. We did have discussions since we came in this morning. As he mentioned, our emergency plan speaks to declaring a state of emergency. And so we need to find an appropriate way when we have a significant weather event on how, without declaring a state of emergency, how do we do the things that are necessary to get the communication out. And I think our manager of communication has proposed and is doing a tremendous job as far as making some necessary changes to make sure that that information is readily available to all our residents, whether it's through social media or our website. So, there's always room for us to improve. And I think there's lessons learned through every event that occurs. And I think that our CAO and our ELT team do a tremendous job in learning after every event on how we can improve our town processes.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And perhaps also including the communication to our partners like the chamber or the BIA or institutions like that. So we are all on the same page, and obviously council as well. So we're all on the same page and have the same talking points. I think there was just some confusion with some residents not knowing what process or where the help was going to come and how and whose responsibility was what. I have to do kudos to staff though, because I felt that they did respond very quickly on the ground, and especially on a long weekend and everybody's all over the place. And, you know, it was a really quick reaction to getting the roads cleared and the hydro wires, and collaborating with Electra to make sure that the safety of the residents were upheld. So I want to say kudos for that quick response, because I know it was a very quick and swift storm that came in, and I don't think any of us are really expecting it to happen. I guess my other question with this as well, in respect to communication, is I know I made a recommendation is Twitter. I know, like, if we had a lot of people's internet's down, but it seems to be the one social media that didn't really take a lot of spinning on my phone when my power had gone out, and it seemed to be pretty consistent when at least I know myself, looking at Bell, Electra, Rogers, wherever, that's where the main point of communication seemed to be pretty consistent, and at least getting some messaging. But I guess if we didn't have power or access to internet, it'd be interesting to know, like, what other modes of communication that we could explore in order to let residents know how we can help, or what those tools were. And that's maybe something that we can consider. I don't know if it's some sort of, you know, signage, a manual signage posted on the road, or is this a communication you do with local broadcasters? I'm not really sure, but I think there's a little bit more work to do beyond social media. I don't know what that looks like, but I'll leave it to you guys to decide.
Thank you.
I have one more thing, if you don't
Go
mind.
ahead.
I know I didn't get to speak on the GO train thing. I just really wanted to make a comment, because I know that we were separating the motions, and I was just trying to really think back of the conversation that we had. Unfortunately, the residents not in the audience, but for the sake of, you know, the public and Zoom, the reason why I had voted in favor for the motion as it was, because I believe at that time we had decided that Center Street would most likely be closed. Grade separation would happen at Wellington. And therefore, Englehart would be the only outstanding road where crossing that would be considered. And I think consensus, we kind of felt that at that time, by the time, you know, we had moved forward with cessation, if it had happened on the regional roads, there would probably be enough data collection as far as the results of the Markham success of their cessation on their town roads, because currently there is none. And the majority of the concerns from citizens have not really gravitated from the highly intensified industrial area. So I just wanted to make those comments as to, you know, we did make a point of separating that vote, and I thought it was important for the residents to understand where my thoughts were on that. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Gardner, new business.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. With respect to the cleanup, you know, a big thank you to staff, but also a big thank you to residents. I think residents pitched in to help each other, and they did a lot of cleanup with respect to, you know, cutting tree limbs and just branches, and really trying to get things under control. So is it possible that we will have a special yard waste pickup for all of this debris?
I guess we'll say, I mean, it sounded like the email said that we shouldn't say, but until tomorrow, but I'm going to say it anyways, because I know Councillor Gardner is, so Councillor Gardner, York Region is going to be offering free yard waste drop off at all. Basically, I got the names of the facilities, and I think Mr. Downey did send that email to all of us.
Thank you.
Yeah, so if you check it, so you can let residents know tomorrow morning that they'll be able to do that. And I'm sure that we're going to get that out on our social media feeds as well from the town, and then also individual councillors as well. So we'll make sure residents are made aware that they will be able to do that.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I was thinking more about actually what is at the moment at the curbside. Some residents may be able to get the debris into their, well, I don't know exactly how, into their trucks if they have them. But there's a lot of debris, and some of it's big debris. Is there any chance that we would be able to do a curbside pickup for the residents that can't get it over to a facility?
Mr. Downey, can we look at increasing our curbside yard waste pickup for the time being?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. As you know, I always like to help, but in this case, we are at the end. We have done done our very best to try to get the roads cleared and make sure that people are safe and they have the ability to hydro back. And that was our main focus, and we focused on that for 3 days. We are now trying to move through our trail system. As you know, all our trails are shut down, and there are hazard trees throughout our trail system.
Yes.
We've had to change all the timers on all the lights so that people could play ball and soccer and tennis. Same time we're cutting grass. This is the season where it grows, and if you have a front lawn, you know you cut it twice a week. This is extremely difficult for all of us, but I cannot commit at this point unless we bring a contract service in to do this. But that
Right.
would be an additional cost. That would be over and above what we would normally do. We've even reached out to Newmarket, and Newmarket's been great with us to give us use of some a bucket truck and a chipper, and we've got some extra equipment in order to get some of this stuff done faster. But I'm not in a position to commit that we would be able to do this in-house, but we could, if you wish, look at a contracted service.
Councillor?
I'm really not sure that all that debris also will probably not stay in place. Even the stuff that's bundled, it'll be rolling around. So we may have to look at something extra. Also, with respect to Shepherd's Bush in particular, there was a lot of damage there. Could you expand upon how we are going to clean that up so that we can make the trail safe?
Mr. Downey?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, as I said, we have extensive damage throughout our trail system, which is where our concentration is right now. Shepherd's Bush was hit probably the hardest of all of them.
Yes.
5 large trees fell in the parking lot at the off Mary Street. We have trees down throughout the trails. We have signs put up through all our trails to ask people not to use them while we go in and evaluate the damage and remove any hazards. So it is our main area of concentration at this point. We still have trees in many of our boulevards that we haven't cleared out yet, but they're not creating a hazard. And we have some trees down in some parks, and we are moving methodically through all of those to ensure that we're safe. As you can appreciate, some of the hazards are not immediately evident, and we have to make sure that we inspect almost every single tree to make sure that we haven't got a situation where there's a limb that is potentially a hazard and could fall.
Councillor?
Thank you, Mr. Downey. I know that our staff was out working on the weekend and doing the best to help. So would you please thank them from all of us? And I guess that's the best we can do at the moment.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Councillor. I'm just going to add just a few things in regards to that. You know, I just want to thank not only staff, because staff did a tremendous job. They're out there right away, but also emergency services. They did a tremendous job making sure that our residents, community, and not just here, but right through from. You know, it hit Vaughan, it hit Stouffville, it hit Uxbridge. They were out and they made sure that everyone remained safe, and especially in our community. And so I want to thank them. And then, as Councillor Gardner mentioned, our community, our residents, and I'm not surprised by this. You went out, you saw them. They all came together. They're helping each other. Some people were not even home at the time. They were away either at the cottage or they were away on a vacation. And, there were some stories where the tree had fallen on their house and they weren't home. But the neighbors in the area got together and helped out. And it was quite phenomenal to see. And but like I said, I wasn't surprised at the spirit of our community. And it just goes to show how special of a community we are, and the residents that reside in this community, and how it makes our community, the great community that it is. So, thanks to everybody. And I know that it was a tough weekend, and not just for the residents, but for the businesses as well. And I believe some of the businesses still have power out. I believe on the west side of Yonge, it might be back on now as we speak, but it was out for a while. I know Electra has been doing some tremendous job, as well. I mean, if you see the amount of poles that were down and what they had to do to get them back up, phenomenal. And even, I believe a gentleman was stuck in his car for close to 4 hours, was in the car when the pole struck. And as I said, emergency services right away, and they made sure that he remained safe until they could get him out. And so, phenomenal job by everybody in our community at all levels. So thank you. And with that, I will ask for the bylaws, a motion. Councillor Thompson, seconder. Bylaws. Oh. Councillor Gallo? Absolutely. Yeah. So did you just want to speak to it, or did you want me to separate it as well?
No, I just want
to speak to it. Yep, absolutely. Well, let me just get the motion first. Moved by Councillor Thompson, seconded by Councillor Kim, I believe. Yep. Councillor Gallo on 12.3 bylaw.
It just, I don't normally highlight these, but I think this one should, because we're redesignating the historical value of Monk's Walk and 5100 Bloomington. And I wanted to read the portion that we're adding to it. And it says, in 1950, the property was purchased by the government of Ontario, and the building was converted into a residential facility for males 16 years of age and older with developmental disabilities due to overcrowding at the Huronia Regional Center in Orillia. The facility was renamed Pine Ridge in 1974 and continued to operate until August 1984. During these years, and this is the important part, during these years, it has been reported that the residents were emotionally, physically, and psychologically abused. The building was housed over 170 residents until it closed in August of 1984. So that's the section that we're adding, and I think rightfully so. If we're going to create a history of that building, that needs to be included. So I think it's important to highlight that.
Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you.
Anything else on the bylaws? Otherwise, I'll call the vote. Call the vote. That carries. Confirming bylaw. Someone like to move that. Councillor Humfryes, Councillor Thompson. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. Motion to adjourn. Councillor Gillen, seconded by Councillor Kim. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Have a great week.